Well, welcome everyone to it's a webinar. We call these a webinar, but it's actually, I think today going to be more of a talk about how to save money on travel. And do let us know where you're calling in from on the chat if you'd like to. We are hoping, so I'm Carolyn Ray from JourneyWoman. We're hoping that today's discussion will be helpful to you in terms of how to save some money on travel, not just flights, but looking at overall value destinations as well. And I'm very happy to have Gemma Jameson with me today from Skyscanner. She's calling in from Scotland. Are you there?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
We're thrilled to have you here. I just want to explain a little bit of the background about how Gemma and I met. We met a few months ago, I think, in Toronto, when she was in Toronto. And right after that, I tried Skyscanner to look at some flights, and I was having a really hard time booking a flight for my daughter. And we went to airline websites directly, and then I started looking around at Skyscanner because the flights on the airline sites were so expensive. I just couldn't bring myself to pay for it. And I found some fabulous deals on Skyscanner. And so it made me realize there are deals to be had. And I know that most of us like to book our own travel and we like to go to airline sites directly. But I think there is some value in understanding how apps and websites like Skyscanner work. So I invited Gemma to come and share some of those with us. And we also want to talk about some of the myths of travel because so much has changed with technology and AI. So she is here to answer all of your questions, and I encourage you to put them in the chat, and we will just, go at it and see if we can figure some of this out together and understanding some of the shifts in travel and some of the best value destinations and questions around technology. So Gemma, thank you for being here today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Carolyn. And it's so nice to see so many people on the webinar, and definitely I'm not feeling the pressure at all. So my name is Gemma Jameson, and I am the Senior PR and Communications Manager for Skyscanner. I'm hoping some of you have used Skyscanner before. We are a travel app. We are 20 years old. I'm here to tell you all how to get good deals as much as possible. You know, in the world that we live in today, there are tools out there, and Skyscanner is just one of them.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in travel. And do you want to give us a little bit of background on Skyscanner? And because actually I was very surprised to see when I was looking for my flights that Skyscanner really has changed a lot. It's got a lot more than it used to. It used to be really just flights, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can give you a little bit of a background. I can also just share my little presentation that I've got. That might help me. I'll just do a slideshow. Hopefully that works. Is that working? Can you see
Yep, all good. Yes.
This is where we would all rather be, of course. But so basically Skyscanner has existed for around 20 years. And how Skyscanner actually came about was there were four friends at Edinburgh University, and they wanted to go skiing. And they basically they were programmers, they were studying programming at the university, and they spent hours and days, checking flight prices across the internet at the time, and created an Excel spreadsheet that would automatically fill with the flights pricing as they changed. And basically that was the start of Skyscanner, was an Excel spreadsheet with some pricing for their flights that they wanted to get. Fast forward 20 years, and we're now, a massive platform in almost every country in the world, connecting with, hundreds of millions of travelers every day. So yeah, a little bit about Skyscanner, and I'll be super, super clear. We are a meta search platform. So you can't book anything on Skyscanner, you can't pay for anything on Skyscanner, you can't transact at all on Skyscanner. So what we do is we basically are your best friend in the pub, in the restaurant, over lunch, that can gather every single price that's out there and give them to you. So that friend that maybe you're that friend that knows all the pricing, knows all the airlines, all the little budget airlines whenever you're traveling. That's what Skyscanner is. It basically uncovers all of that stuff that you can't see, maybe if you're just searching at surface level for your, your standard sort of journey types. We can surface different pricing and different itineraries for you. Sorry, I'm just going to try and see here. So literally billions of prices every day. So if you think about, I think it's 110 million people a month that use Skyscanner. That's quite an old figure. It's probably more than that now. And if you think about how many different searches that means, if one person on Skyscanner might do, 20 searches. So we are literally surfacing billions of prices every single day to those travelers. So yeah, 110 million users every single month, which means that we basically get a lot of people to their best price holiday is what that means. 80 billion prices, again, madness. But yeah, it's definitely, the platform is massive now, and we work with most, if not all, airlines, and we have lots of partners and hotel groups and things like that. But we surface, if there's a flight, if it's a commercial airline, it's on Skyscanner, basically. So 5,000 search requests per second. I can't even imagine that. I thought my email inbox was bad. So this is the interesting thing about Skyscanner and where we're slightly different from other places that you might be going. If you go on to Air Canada or British Airways or Delta or United or KLM or whoever, you can search from your origin, say it's Toronto, to a destination, and usually those airlines will have a limited route map. So say from Toronto you can fly XYZ, maybe it's 120 routes or something. On Skyscanner, you could go on to Skyscanner and search Toronto, and you could pick a destination not served by any airline flying out of Canada, and we will find a way to get you there. That's the kind of magic of Skyscanner, pulling from all these different airlines, providers, partners, to make sure we can get you there. And sometimes that even means we get you there cheaper. So yeah, I mean, it's just, as I say, it's massive. The numbers are crazy. It's not computable in my mind. So yeah, so as I've said, you can't transact on Skyscanner at all. We don't take any money. So how it works is that if you go off and book with Air Canada or Delta or whoever, BA, KLM, we take a nominal fee. Now, the numbers that I've spoken about on, the platform give you an indication of the level of people that go through the app, the website, every single day. So the airlines pay anyway, so I think the number is so nominal because we depend on volume traffic. So the airlines pay us a fee for giving them your booking, essentially, because you found them via us. And that's how that works. So this is the magic part. This is how it actually works. So we've got some kind of mock-ups here. So this is kind of like what the app looks like on your phone. So one of the magical things about Skyscanner is that we invented the everywhere search. So that means that you can go onto Skyscanner and do something that's called an open jaw search. That means that you are not being specific about your destination. You are flexible, you're open to suggestion. And what quite often will happen is with that sort of feature, it happened in Europe a few years ago, but maybe 10 years ago, is that a budget airline went in and started doing flights from the UK, from major airports in Europe into Croatia. So that flight would be surfaced quite often on an everywhere search because they're ordered by price. So say if it was, $100 to go to Spain, $110 to go to France, $120 to go to Germany, because this Croatia flight was on for 90, it superseded all the other ones in the search every time. For Europeans, use Skyscanner a lot. We naturally do compare travel, we're also a bit more fickle when it comes to things like supermarkets. There's like things like vouchers and coupons and things aren't really common here in Europe. It's more like you compare price point at the price point. That's more the behavior that we see here. So Skyscanner 20 years ago just took off, and obviously we're everywhere now. But yeah, that's kind of the mindset of how you have to go into this sort of thing. So yeah, so that's a great feature that we see a lot of our travellers coming in to use, because they maybe are open to destinations that they haven't been to before. So month view. So this is a fantastic thing that I am using right now to try and book a trip for myself. So if you're open to dates, but you have a limited window, so say you want to go away within, the kids' school holidays, that's the 1st of August till the 1st of September, you're open. Or say the 15th of July to the 15th of August, whatever your window is, you can put that in Skyscanner and it will show the thing in multiple dates within that window. So you can say, oh, actually, if I left a day later, I could actually save $50, or if I flew on the Friday and back on the Tuesday, that's cheaper than flying the opposite way. So that's quite a useful feature. And actually, I'm going to do a live demonstration of this after, so you can see how it really works in kind of real time. Another thing that's fantastic, because we are not loyal to one airline, we're not loyal to one provider, you can effectively do this search with multiple cities in. So you can say, I want to go, let's use I know it's a mixed international audience today, but let's use a Canadian example and say, I want to fly Toronto to Athens for my summer vacation. And then from Athens, I'm going to get an internal flight into Paris. And then I'm going to fly back from Paris to Toronto. So you can do that on a search in Skyscanner, just in one search. As you see, there's kind of lines, there's kind of rows there. What that'll do is that'll pull from every single airline on those routes and give you the fastest, cheapest way to do that. So that might be flying out with Emirates, then internally with Vueling or Ryanair or EasyJet, and then back with Air France or someone. So that it takes that weight out of having to have multiple tabs open. You've got the laptop, the iPad, the phone out, you're trying to do all these multiple searches. It really makes that super, super easy. And I think especially for going into like Europe where you're doing multiple stops, or it's fantastic for things like that. And then if you know where you're going and it's at a good price, but you're like, oh, I don't really need to book that right now. I could wait and see if the price goes down. You can set an alert and we'll notify you if the price goes down, which is a very useful feature. So yeah, and you can order your flights by, your results when you search for flights by, is it the best flight, which is a kind of mixture of fastest and cheapest, or do you just want the cheapest? Sometimes you do just want the cheapest, and sometimes you do just want the fastest. If you have to be somewhere, it's a family thing, you've got to get there, or if you simply are trying to really, really do it to a certain budget, you can order it by that, which is great. So yeah, that's my little slideshow. I'm sorry that was like a bit of an information dump, but I'm happy to take any questions on that, or if you'd like, I've got some kind of live examples of searches that we could do.
I think that would be great. I just want to ask, Skyscanner also now is doing hotels, cars, like
Yep.
it's very, very, there's booking.com, very similar
Yep.
types of things. What is it that makes Skyscanner different from some of these other apps and websites?
Absolutely. So, there's a few different reasons why we're different. We work with a lot of partners. 1,200 partners that we work with directly. It means that we give travelers a really smooth experience. So if you get the Skyscanner app and you sign in, like, you can create a little login and you're searching for flights, you're searching, and you find your flights. We can make it so that when you then go for your, you go off from Skyscanner and book with the airline, that your information is already input. You don't have to do that again. Like there's just little product innovations that we do to just make it more seamless. We work with partners to make sure that pricing is accurate. You know, we're getting the cheapest pricing wherever possible. We just surface what is out there. That's a common myth as well. Like we're purely surfacing the pricing that is there, but we work to make sure that it's accurate to the penny as much as possible. We obviously pioneered quite a lot of features that other competitors are now using, like the everywhere feature has been copied but never quite replicated by some of our competitors. And we're doing that all the time. You know, we employ a lot of engineers that do very complicated work that I do not understand, but I enjoy the benefits of the fantastic features that they create. But we're always innovating. And we have some new products that will be coming out this year that are, you call them products, but they're basically features, new jazzy features that mean that we're like constantly getting the one up on our competitors, really. But yeah,
Great.
hotels, car hire, we do the whole thing. Yeah. But I thought I would lead on flights because that's where you know, we normally introduce ourselves to anyone that doesn't know us too well.
Yeah, and in some ways it is the biggest pain point because the flights have gotten so expensive, and I think, you know, in my experience, the opportunity to mix and match flights is really helpful,
Yeah.
to have other alternatives. And as you say, you're not losing out on airline loyalty miles or anything. You can still get you can still get all the points with the airlines. So why don't you do a demo? And if
Little lab.
anybody has a place, we could come up with a complicated itinerary. I see one here, a request for Vancouver to Asia. Is there any particular city in Asia that we're looking for? That should we just pick Tokyo or something like that?
Right, let me share my little screen and I shall show you a live search. Okay, so this is the Skyscanner homepage on like my web browser, but also this is also achievable in the app. So same product, obviously. So
And you get the same results on the
results.
app and on the website?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all powered by the same, I'll not get too technical, but it's all basically powered by the same system. So it works, it like
Okay,
integrates airlines and providers in the same way.
great.
So
So let's see, Vancouver to,
do you
shall we
want to
say
do a
Vietnam?
do you want to do a multi-city? Do you want to do multiple
Sure,
cities?
let's do a multi-city.
So that was just me clicking that. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but just above the normal search, it says create a multi-city route. So you would just literally click that. So then you can say Toronto, you would maybe say any. So this is where that open-mindedness is really key because that opens up lots of routes. So if you're within several, you know, the region, if you're in Toronto and you're not like, or you're flying into London, it's always better a city where there's multiple airports and they're all kind of the same. It's always better to leave that as the city rather than be tied to one particular airport because it doesn't make much difference if you fly into Toronto, Heathrow or Gatwick or similar, you know, in New York, if it's Newark or, JFK, it doesn't really make that much difference in the grand scheme. If you can be flexible, that's always better. So did we say Vietnam? Is that what we said, Vietnam?
Yes, we did. Yep.
So you can do
Let's
Vietnam.
let's go around the world. That'll be fun.
Oh, let's do it right here. Should we say Hanoi? And let's be a
Sure.
bit specific on this one. And do we want, for multi-city search, you do have to be a bit more specific for the software to work because you're giving it a lot of work to do. So to surface every option for this, what we're about to put in, it just simply wouldn't work. So we need to be a bit specific on dates. So when are we taking our trip to Hanoi, do you think?
Maybe in May, early May.
Yeah, should we say the 2nd and 3rd of May? Let's leave on a Saturday so that we can work on Friday and pay for the trip. Okay, and then shall we go from Hanoi to, where would you like to go?
How about Paris?
Paris, okay. Let's say any, let's be realistic. And let's say, how long are we spending in Hanoi? A week? Let's do a week in Hanoi. And then let's add another flight, because I'm assuming we have to go home from Paris to, let's see, Toronto, any. And then let's go back on the 10th.
2 weeks around the world. Crazy.
Around the world in 14 days. That's not the book. Hold on. Right, okay. So then we would just literally just click search, and then Skyscanner starts to do lots of work for you. So it gives you the option. I don't know if you can see, can you see my mouse moving?
Yes.
Okay, so down the left-hand side here, you can see how much you can tailor this to your needs. So if you want to take a direct flight, if there was a direct flight, that would be blue. But obviously, I think because of the nature of the journey that we're taking, there's not going to be a direct flight between any of these destinations. So I think we have to, I think we have to be realistic about the fact that we're going to have to do one stop at least. So, I mean, you could just give yourself the one stop options and just cut out all the ones when there's two stops, because that's quite a lot of flying. So you can get all of that for $2,260, which, I mean, it's a fair amount of money, but you are going around the world. So yeah, you can see that you can have a carry-on bag, you can have a check bag, you can shorten your journey time. So say if you said, oh my goodness, that first flight is 21 hours. I really don't want to do that. Oh, well, you can do it here. You can do the duration. So you can say, I don't really want to travel for longer than, you can take the whole journey time down here. So the quickest route. So you can take it right down and only show the ones where it's under certain amounts of time. So there you are, you're surfacing some with the direct flight there. So yeah, you can chop it down, you can just do cheapest, you can do a departure time. So say if you're like, oh, on the Saturday, I have to drop the dog off at the dog sitter before I fly. So I need to not fly later. You know, I need to do that in the morning so I can leave at midday. So then you take the later flight. You can select airlines, you can select airports that you don't want to work out, if you want to go out of certain ones or you don't want to go out of certain other ones. So yeah, you can tailor it pretty well. Yeah, that's quite a complicated search. I think that's quite good. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think that's quite a good little search.
Now, one of the myths that you and I talked about was Tuesdays, because it's been long reported that Tuesdays are the best day to buy a flight. What is your view on that?
So I think that's a really interesting question, and there's a lot of context on that, because, I mean, if you go back to, the very beginning of commercial air travel, airlines would release their flights a year in advance, and they would be concrete, and they wouldn't change the schedule, back in the 80s and in the 90s when commercial airlines really took off, in a really serious way. That's what they would do. And then actually right up to pre-pandemic, they would have they would have fairly rigid schedules, or they would at least have fairly rigid. So for the capacity, you're an airline and you have 100 aircraft. At any given time, they have weighted that aircraft against certain routes. So they'll know that 30% of those flights will be, a business route that flies every day, or a very common transatlantic flight, or they'll allocate them. They'll know roughly the weight of demand on routes. So they'll plan it so far. And actually pre-pandemic, that was still broadly the case, and they would release flights seasonally. Like if you're one of those people like me who, you do a lot of research, you would know that, this airline releases their flights on this day, and they do it for the next 6 months, and then, this airline does it a month later, and they have a sale. Then the other airline then have a sale to compete with the new. You would kind of do the research and find that all out for yourself. But since the pandemic, basically a lot of operations and a lot of flights and a lot of routes actually just shut down and just kind of ceased to exist. And what airlines have done now And we did see this a little bit. I mean, if you're flying long haul, you can book your flight a year in advance. Like, for example, I was looking to fly from Glasgow to Manila, right? So those flights are released 355 days before they fly. So every day that flight is released day by day. So that's a massive change from just releasing the year and it just goes on sale and it just sells as it sells. So now what the airlines are tending to do is they are scheduling broadly, but being extremely flexible. So to give a live example, say you are looking to fly from Toronto to Paris and you're going to book this week. You've started looking, you're like, oh, right, let's say I'm just going to say prices because I don't know how much your prices are. I work across 3 markets, so I don't know exactly what this price will be and whether it's ludicrous. But if you were to say, okay, I'm looking today and I want to fly from Toronto to Paris and it's going to cost me $600 if I book that today. That could be the price that's been available for, I should also go back in time. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm trying to give you all the information possible. So the plane is bucketed usually. So the seats on a plane are bucketed into different values. So the first tranche of seats that they will release are the cheapest to drive interest in the flight. So that when you are booking that flight, you're getting a cheap deal because the demand that is not matching the supply yet. The supply is massive. The plane's not full at all. You're getting a great deal because you're going to drive. You're going to be part of the reason that that plane fills up. So you get a good deal if you book. That's the rule of thumb. If you can book early, book early. Then you kind of get to like the flight for Toronto to Paris for June has been for sale for quite some time now. So that price is now somewhat affected by the fact that the plane is starting to fill up. People have booked 6 months, 8 months in advance. You're now not one of the first people to book that flight. So you're paying for the fact that you weren't quick off the mark. But, so you could book now and go, do you know what? I'm okay with that price. I can make peace with it. That's the price. I'm happy to pay that. If it goes up or down, I'll just make my peace with it. That's fine. What can sometimes happen is that airline, say it's Air France, they see massive demand for some reason for that route. So say there's like a White Lotus or some TV show comes out and suddenly drives lots of demand, or there's just a kind of extra sort of buzz about Paris this year for Canadians. They'll move capacity over from other routes. So the flights that were going to Athens, they'll reduce down that capacity to serve the demand for Paris. And then the shift between supply and demand becomes weighted towards the traveller again. So it drives the price down because there's suddenly X amount more seats on that route that they have to sell. So they put the price down again to drive demand again. So that's why price alerts are fabulous, because if you think, I'm not sure, I'm not quite all that convinced, that could be something, where you maybe bookmark that for later because it might decrease. Also, if the plane's not sold out the month before, 2 months before, sometimes they'll dip the price to kind of drive bookings as well.
So it really has nothing to do with the day anymore. It's more with the demand on the
They're
flight.
watching it, and I can't stress this enough. They're watching the demand. They've got data analysts now, like they have data, like every airline almost has a massive data team where they're literally using crazy algorithms to watch demand, to watch searches, to who's looking where, a good example of how they're watching is, I'm going to use a UK example just because it's in my mind, but Albania for the past 3 years has been trending for Europeans. There's a cost of living crisis, there's a resurgence in that Dalmatian coast, area, And basically Croatia happened, Montenegro happened, Albania, Slovenia, Slovakia is happening now. So there was like one airline flying in from the UK, and they were doing it really, really cheap to try and drive that demand. So then the demand grew. Now other airlines come in. So they say, hold on, I'm watching their demand. The demand for that is going, we've got people coming onto our site and trying to search Albania. We don't fly there. They are watching it day to day. They are watching the trends. They are watching who's searching where. And they're adding flights to serve demand. And they will move stuff away from other existing routes. They'll upscale or downscale planes, you know, so say they were going to put on a plane with 300 seats on that route that day, they'll maybe take it back to a 200 and move the 300 over to a different, they'll shimmy about all their inventory to suit demand. So it's really not the case anymore that you can get a cheaper flight on a Tuesday, but the rule of thumb is if you can book early and be the first ones to book that seat on the plane, you're getting a very, very good price.
Yeah. And what about incognito mode? Because that's something we used to hear too, is if you search, because I think we've all had that experience. We go back to a website and suddenly it seems like the price is doubled or something.
Absolutely. So something like Skyscanner. So there's layers of data. Like I don't want to get into how technical it is, but basically there's a price on a website and that's then fed through several layers of data, like being pushed through to us. When you search on Skyscanner, you don't affect a price. We simply show you what's being shown on, you know, around the internet. We basically surface all that to you. Now, if there's something like an event that drives a lot of people to go through and start booking flights, that will drive the price up. So as I've said, these prices are controlled by mostly algorithms, data science now, with humans kind of overseeing and making sure it's not ridiculous. But say, let's use a really good recent example of Taylor Swift announces a tour with 2 dates in Canada, right? And they're both in Toronto. You will see demand leap for those dates to Toronto for people all around Canada trying to get to that concert. When they start going through and start booking, they start filling up that bucket very, very quickly. And what can happen is the computer algorithm will drive the price up. And that can happen, you know, it happens for sporting events. You know, if a team gets through to a playoff and suddenly everyone wants to see the team or whatever. So that can happen very, very quickly and a sort of, usually a human sees that on the airline side and adjusts it. So, you know, sometimes that gets corrected again. There are definitely, that's you. So this is actually a tip. If you're booking a girls' trip, if you're booking a family trip, try and book all of your tickets at once if you can, because you could be the last, say you booked first, Carolyn, and I'm going to book after you. You could be the last person to get that bucket of ticket. So like you could be the last person to get it at $150 and I pay $200. So if you're booking as a group, it's usually best to get one person because if there's a ticket available at $150 and you book 3 tickets, quite often that means that you pay $150 for everyone, even though you've just taken it over the limit. So yeah, that's a good tip as well. Just make sure if you're booking as a group, you book together. But usually what drives the price is it's exceeded the capacity for that price. So the price jumps.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take some questions here in the chat. I think we've answered the Tuesday one. Here's a question from Nancy. Are there airlines with relationships that would accommodate you without extra charges if the first flight is late for the connecting flight?
Sorry, let me just see if I've understood this. So this is if you've booked with 2 airlines. Is that what you mean? Or do you want to know if like you book with miss?
Yeah. Nancy, do you want to jump in and ask this?
Oh, 2 airlines. Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, like, there's code share airlines. So like if you fly BA and Qatar, for example, quite often that can be linked in and your bags can go straight through and it's not a thing. The thing is, if you're booking connecting flights, you want to have enough time to get through. I've done it myself. I was running through Doha Airport in
Yeah.
January, literally running. If you're booking through separate bookings, you are enjoying probably a much cheaper price and potentially a much more efficient journey, but it may mean that you have to make provisions in the airport to pass your bag through or to make sure that that all goes smoothly. But you can contact the airlines ahead of time and just check what that would mean. Like usually they have an FAQ thing on their website to see what can happen, or you could literally just, I mean, if I'm ever in doubt, I reach out to airlines on Twitter because they get back very fast, but maybe not now. But maybe not Twitter now, but certainly on their social media, they tend to answer quite quickly. But yeah, I think sometimes with some airlines that don't kind of speak to each other, like their systems maybe don't speak, you definitely want to check about what the situation is. Some airports, we were talking about Iceland before we joined this call, but an airport like Iceland, they're extremely accommodating. Like they have this area within the airside portion of the airport where they are just really accommodating if you're flying in through different airlines. But again, it's really, really different. So that is the thing about Skyscanner. You are getting that full view of the world, the full view of all the airlines, all the possibilities, but it does just take that little bit more research on the kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. Now,
But
what if you have some connecting flights that you've booked on Skyscanner and one of those flights gets canceled? Will Skyscanner find you a new flight automatically, or do you have to go in and do that yourself?
so yeah, so you don't ever book anything on Skyscanner. You don't, we simply show you what's there. So
Okay.
unfortunately, you can't come to us and say, I'm in this airport, help.
If you
Um,
go to the airline.
Go to the
Yeah.
airline, always go to your airline. But if you've got another thing I would just say is travel insurance. Like this day and age, get travel insurance. I've just had it with a family member who was flying over to the Middle East, well, Australia via the Middle East. And they didn't have travel insurance when they booked. Always have it before you book. I can't stress it enough. It just went wrong they had a health concern just after they booked and they didn't get their money back. They didn't have insurance and it fell outside the policy for the airline. So if I say anything to you today, it's get insurance. Get very
Yeah.
good.
Well, one of my questions is, often you see a great deal, you go click on that deal, and then you get a list of other websites, not necessarily airline websites it could be Flight Network, it could be findyourbestflight.com. How do you know, like some of those sites you don't know? And so I think for me, I would prefer to still book with the airline than
Yeah,
go through another site, because then you have to go find out, well, who is that site that I'm booking through rather than the airline directly.
yeah. So this is another really interesting point. So travel used to just be airlines and individual hotels or big hotel groups, and that's it. There are now this level called OTAs, who we surface on our website. When you go through Skyscanner, you might collect, this is a good example of if you collect air miles or points, if you're a member of an Avios, a One World or whoever, you might collect them with a credit card and it's dependent on your credit card spend. So you could then purchase with anyone. You could purchase with an OTA, you could purchase with anyone. If your points or your loyalty scheme is tied to an airline, you can tick the group, the points program on the left-hand side when you're searching.
Yep.
It only surfaces results where you collect points booking directly. Again, it's like weighing up. So you could go on Skyscanner, compare everything, and then just book with your normal airline anyway, because you think, well, the saving's not that big, and actually I'll get my points and blah, blah, blah. Fine. That is the point of Skyscanner. You check everything and then you make an informed decision anyway. you might really be watching your budget. You know, maybe it's a big family trip, maybe it's a, you know, maybe it's an expensive route, maybe it's a route where your airline or your preferred points program won't fly. You know, like when you search with one airline only, you're limiting yourself to their routes, which I always think is the kind of worst part of it. So I'm very unloyal to airlines. Yeah, so the point of that is you may then see flights and results with an OTA on Skyscanner, which would be like a online travel agency. They are scored on Skyscanner, customer rating scores. So you can check that on our site. Again, you can do your own research on top of that if you want to, but they are rated, and we don't show anyone that we don't deal with. If you had found a deal on Skyscanner and booked it with an OTA and there had been an issue, you go to them first. But if you come to us, we'll also help you. You know, you found it on our site, and that would. But realistically, it's up to them. And we have really good relationships with all the OTAs. And if there ever has been an issue, it's very rare. We have the same level of issue with people booking with an airline that come to us. And, you know, sometimes they don't realise they've not booked with us. We've showed them the flight, even if it's been with a big, huge airline that they've booked with. But we always help them. We always try. We always get in contact with the team if we can, if we say it's a genuine complaint. But yeah, an OTA on our site, we have as much confidence in them as an airline.
Yeah. I'm realizing as we're talking, I mean, there really is a difference between your site, Expedia, Booking.com. They are accepting credit cards, you are not. The booking is being handled completely by the airline or the OTA. So there were some questions about providing credit card numbers and things like that. You wouldn't ever need to do that on the Skyscanner site.
And I mean, I guess there's like converse, there's kind of good and bad things about that, because that might feel like a more seamless experience. You know, you find the deal on Expedia or whoever other competitors' websites, and then you transact on that website where you found it. But actually what that means is you've got another person. If you ever want to change anything, if you ever want to speak to anyone about the booking, you've got to go through several layers of people to get the original thing. So I do think there's pros and cons. I'm not saying, you know, that it's not the right thing to do for anyone. I'm just saying, you know, there's different, you can weigh it up.
Yeah, got it. That's good. Could you do a little demo for us of some of the other services Skyscanner has? We talked about hotels and others, and I assume if you can bundle them all together. So you could do a flight, hotel, car kind of scenario.
So we actually have just launched packages, which is a really big deal for Skyscanner. That's not something we've ever offered. I'll just share my screen here. Yeah, it's not something we've ever offered, so it's a brand new thing. But when you buy a flight and a hotel via Skyscanner, or if you find them on Skyscanner, you'll go off and book them with several different people, so it's not bundled. So it's more if you're wanting to build your own itinerary, maybe you're doing, you know, you're less tied to getting things bundled. That's probably where you're best for Skyscanner. Okay, so let's do.
And Jem, are you best to log in? So I often use Skyscanner, but I don't even think I've logged in ever. Is it good to have an account? That's how you set up the alerts and everything, right?
Yeah. So that's how you would set up an alert. That's how you would create a really, really smooth experience going through or, you know, if you're going through and save things, or, you know, have your searches saved so it's easier and you can just click that search again, make it really smooth. But for the sake of today, I'm not going to log in. But yeah, it just takes it up to a nicer level of sort of ease, I guess. So I can show you what an open jaw flight search would look like. So that would be where you're saying, right, so I live in Toronto, I want to explore everywhere. I'm not tired. I just want to go to the beach, or I just want to do a city break, or I just want some food. I just want to have some nice food. I don't care where it is. You can be super flexible. This is the most flexible option. So you can say flexible dates. So you could say, well, the kids are off in August. Let's go in August and let's return in August. And I'll say it's for, let's say it's for two people. Yeah. So then you would click search, and then it shows you from Toronto all the options that you have. So you can sort of filter them by different sort of categories if you want, like, you know, beach break, food break, adventures. But I think the most used is probably this little pill here. We call them pills, a direct flight pill. So that just shows you the direct ones. So you can go within Canada for $200. That's return. And then you can do, these are all return flights because when we did our search, we put a return leg in. So Costa Rica for 409, Dominican Republic for 416, Bahamas for 459. This is making me really jealous. St. Lucia, you know, so you can see for those months. And then when you clicked in, so let's say we want to go to the Bahamas. So then it'll show you within the Bahamas where you can go. So this one has a direct flight. So we can fly into Nassau. So then you can say, well, I wasn't bothered about my dates, so I will just play about and see which date I want to go. So if I leave on the 4th, like it'll show you on a chart as well. So all the different pricing. But say you pick the 4th and the 11th, right? You want this week here. Then you go into your results. It's not quite as cheap, but it's still a really good price for a return to the Bahamas, in my opinion. But I would pay anything to go to the Bahamas, but I'm biased. So yeah, so that's kind of how it works on a normal OpenJaw search. So yeah, it shows you all the different dates and things. And then if you wanted to do a search where you did know your dates. So say you said, okay, so we've got our anniversary is on the 10th of May. So I want to fly out on Friday the 9th and come back on Monday the 12th. And I want to go to, let's say Vancouver, just for talking's sake. And it's for two people. So that's where you would see all your results there. And then you can set your price alert if you're like, well, I'm not going to book right now. I might book later, but at least I've got that in my mind and I'll get an email if it drops down. That's where you would set up your price alert. You can say, oh, do you know what? We're flying on the Friday and actually I'm working until 5. So let's not fly until after 5:30 and let's go back as late as we can. Let's try and get the most out of the day. Then you can, like, you know, do it by time too. And then obviously here you've found your flights, now find a hotel. So explore hotels, and of course it's got your dates in there. So it'll show you the hotels that are available in Vancouver for your dates. And you can order it by, you can do top reviews, you can do lowest price, you can do you can filter it by price, by rating, whether it's got an airport shuttle, and what kind of accommodation it is. So yeah, you can really filter that down. But then when you do book that, it's not linked, it's not a linked booking because you'll go off to Hilton or Expedia. So like the difference between us and Expedia is that Expedia comes under our search includes Expedia, but it's bigger. So you see more. We have every hotel that's on Expedia. We have every hotel that's on Booking. We have everyone that's on Trip. So that's where Skyscanner really stands out for me, is the breadth of offering. If it's out there, it's basically on it. It's very odd.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think that, or do you know whether the prices you're offering on Skyscanner are cheaper than what is on the airline site, or is it more the opportunity to mix and match and find alternatives?
So we just surface what's there. So like if the
Mm.
price is $101 on KLM, we show you $101. We literally just show you what's there. We're just a like a sort of accumulator.
Aggregator.
We just show
Yeah.
you an aggregator. Yeah, we show you everything. That's kind of
Yeah.
it.
Do you have any, kind of watch outs for when you're booking, things to look out for? There's a comment in here about self-transfer,
Yes.
which to me sounds like a no-no. But
So yeah, a
um,
self-transfer, I mean, I don't know if any of you have done it, but I have done it. In London, you can do a transfer from, it can actually save you a lot of money. Like if you're not too pushed for time, actually, you can save quite a lot doing it if you're brave enough or stupid enough or whatever the word is to do it. But I mean, like for me, flying into say, trying to think where it would work for. Barbados for me. So I would fly to London, and maybe my best flight into London would be Heathrow. And then I know that there's a flight out of Gatwick to Barbados. So I would need to change from Heathrow to Gatwick. But for cities like London, New York, any major capital where there's multiple airports, there's usually a pretty solid shuffle service. So if you just want to go to Barbados and you just really, really want to go there and you want to save money, actually self-transfer actually can work. If you're brave enough and you're just like, no, I'm doing it, I'm just gonna put up with a little shuttle bus for an hour in between. If you've got an hour to spare, it is good. But again, that's the whole point of Skyscanner is you can literally just filter that search result out. If you don't want to do that, you can see it clearly. It's marked very, very clearly in red writing, self-transfer. But yeah, the other thing is just changing airlines, like just getting used to like that little bit of extra research of flying in with one budget airline and perhaps flying through with another. Just making sure that you've built enough time in if you have to go through security, or it's the same if you're transfer, it's the same with any transfer. If you transfer through any airport, you know yourself. If you go, sorry, I keep using the UK references, but if you've been through Heathrow, for example, you know that that's a massive airport. The transfer it can take a while, security is very busy. Whereas if you're flying through Iceland, for example, it's a tiny little airport and they're very,
yeah.
very set up for transferring. They don't even take you out of the Schengen area. You don't go through customs, you don't do any of that. Like just how the airports are set up really differently. But if you're a keen traveller, like, if you're on this call, you're a keen traveller, you probably do a lot of research. You probably are already in that frame of mind. But to me, the biggest thing is don't be tied down to one airline, one airport. Like the more like open you can be, the better. And I don't understand sometimes you can't be, sometimes you just have to get to Toronto. So, okay, you just have to get to Toronto, but can you be flexible on time? Can you be flexible on whether you fly in with one airline and fly out with another? Like we see that quite a lot can save money, fly in with Air Canada, fly out with Porter. Like, can you mix and match? It means you have two different boarding passes, it means you have two different booking references, but if you can make peace with that and deal with that, then actually you can save a lot of money. And then again, step back again, can I be more flexible with my time? Can I be more flexible with my destination? The more and more and more you can do that, the more money you'll save, and actually kind of the more fun you'll have, because I think if you fly with the same airline every single time, or even the same airline and partners, you only see the same routes. You'll never find an Albania flight. You'll never find, a flight to a crazy, fun, new place that everyone's going to, because it won't be surfaced to you if it's not on their route map, where it is on Skyscanner.
Right. I just put an article in the chat too. I was at the New York Times or the New York Travel Show, and Pauline Frommer and Peter Greenberg were talking about how to save money on flights, and there's some great tips that they provided. Peter talked about fifth freedom flights, which really, we have to understand flight routes too, and hubs, and I mean, there's so much more to this than just simply getting on and booking the flight. It's a little bit of research, but and it's something we can talk about more, I think, but I know
Yeah.
we're almost out of time. And I'm sure there are more questions. If there are questions we didn't get to today, please do put them in the chat and we will make sure that they get answered. We will send an email out as well with some of these questions and answers. And of course, we'll continue writing about this. We have a whole section on the website about budget travel. And of course, knowing how important it is to keep costs down and how much flights are a part of something we want to continue to pursue this topic. But Gemma, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon and explaining this to us. And hopefully the folks on the call have a new view of Skyscanner and might try it out and see if you can save some money.
Yeah, I hope so. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And this is something I could talk about all day, is how to save money on flights. I hope I've been clear in my answers. I do tend to waffle. So if anything wasn't clear at all, please do shout and we'll make sure that I get an answer to Carolyn for you all to have.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And just on one other note, we do have some other things happening this month. We have a book club next week. I think it's next week. We also have a webinar at the end of the month on culinary travel on Monday, the 24th. So please do join us if you'd like to learn more about places to eat a lot of delicious food and how to get there. So thank you all for making time in your afternoon to be with us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.